Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today I'm excited to have with me Krystle Dookoo. And now, Krystle, you are going to find out her passion is helping others reach their goals. And since she was a little girl, her dream was always to be in a field where she can be of service to others. And as the years went by, it's safe to say she's living that passion every day. Now, she works with a lot of students, but in addition to that, she also maintains a social media marketing business. She started her company, Imagery Mentors, 4.5 years ago as a way to help entrepreneurs and small business owners build and maintain an online presence while sharing their business and their passion with their targeted audience. And today we are going to be focusing in on part of that marketing side, which is the power of your story. So welcome to the podcast, Krystle.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm excited too. So, Krystle, why don't you start by introducing yourself and sharing some of your story with us?
Well, my name is Krystle, and I currently live in New York City, but I came to New York City from a small island, Trinidad and Tobago, when I was I moved there. I moved from Trinidad and Tobago when I was 20, and I moved to New York City for college. And I've been there for 15 years. I had no family, no type of connection other than the school. And it was so different compared going from a small island to a huge city. But I really started to find who I was as a person, still am actually. And, throughout that period, choosing to stay there and pursue my path and my purpose and figure out who I am, I lost my mom in the process to cancer. So I had to deal with a lot of grief from far away. And when I lost her, as devastating as that was, like it was so, it still is devastating. That really pushed me to figure out what I needed, what I wanted to do with my life. I think I was very sheltered, having my mom and dad and, working and doing this, but not really figuring out where I fit into life. And when I lost her, it really caused me to take a deep look at, what am I here for, Krystle? Like, what am I on this earth for? And I always knew it had to do with helping others in whatever capacity. So then that whole period went through learning how to figure out how I can help someone else. And also that caused me to start my business, it caused me to start writing my book. And then just really started living for myself authentically and genuinely and accepting who I am. And also really becoming passionate to helping other people who may not be in that position yet. That's my story so far. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. When you lose a parent, or, when you lose someone really close to you for the first time, it does change you.
Yeah.
It really does cause you to think about a lot of things in your life. I had lost my mom when I was 4, so I don't really remember that. Like I remember the effects of not having a mother, but I don't remember losing her. And I think that's just God's mercy. And, I think I've just blocked it, right? Because at 4, I was old enough to remember, and I can remember after she died. But,
it was so hard growing up
without a mother. Yeah. But the death that hit me the most was my dad. And my dad died when I was 32. So, that his death really,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But you know what? It's one of those things that I can look back on my life and be thankful. Do I wish I had more years with him? Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful for the years that I did have with him, and the influence and the impact and, the love that he poured into my life.
Yes.
But it does change you. And when my dad died, and, I started going through the grieving, actually I didn't really start the grieving process till about 6 months afterwards, because
Me
I
too.
went into maintenance mode.
Yeah.
I had
Yes.
kids, I had a job, I had a lot of stress.
Yeah. So you
And
just focused on that, right? Like you didn't
mhm,
allow you, like you were just focused on, I need to keep busy and take care of these things.
yeah. But about 6 months after my dad died, I was actually on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And I knew it. I knew I just couldn't deal with it. It wasn't just his death either. I had lost about 10 people in the span of 2 years and hadn't really
Oh,
grieved. So
yeah.
I took a year off and grieved. My husband and I talked about it. He knew that
Mhm.
I was, he knew I was not in good shape. He could see it. And I
Yeah.
kept saying I was fine, I was fine. But, when I finally told him I can't do this anymore, he's like, yeah, I know. I've been waiting for you to admit it.
Oh, well, I, oh my God, I can't, like, it's so true. Like, because when I lost my mom,
Mhm.
um, within 6 months of losing her, I lost my cousin who was like my brother. I didn't grow up with any siblings. And he grew up right next door. So he and I had that very
Mhm.
sibling. I would come home, we would talk like he was my brother, you know. And shortly after, so I didn't deal with her. I went straight back into work. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to fulfill the promise I said to her. I'm just going to, and everyone was commenting, "Oh, you're so strong. You're so strong." And I understand that comes from a very good place. And I know that that comes from a very good place and it comes from a lot of love.
Yes.
But I hated it because I felt like if I didn't keep it together, I would be disappointing other people who were looking at my strength and
Yes.
who was like, your faith in God is so strong. And I'll be like, well, if I lose it, then they're going to think, well, she doesn't have any really strong faith in God because she's losing it. And so I felt like I had to keep it together. And but it started coming out in different ways where I would get snappy, I would get
Yeah.
angry. And I had to make the decision to go into therapy after a
Mhm.
conversation with a friend. Because she pointed it out that you don't seem like yourself, you
Yeah.
know? And I had to make the decision like 7, 8 months later to go into therapy and work on that because we don't realize how important it is.
Well, the Bible says God comforts those who grieve. Well,
Yes,
you got to be grieving to be comforted.
exactly. Exactly.
If you're not grieving, you can't be comforted. And that's what I finally realized, was that I had to stop and grieve, and that it was okay for me to stop and grieve. And it wasn't that I
Yeah.
wasn't strong, because I'm a very strong person. But, when you've had so much happen in a space of time, the strong person recognizes when they need to step back
Yep.
and
Yes.
regroup and re-strengthen. You
Yeah.
can't give out what you don't have.
Exactly. Exactly. And
So,
I learned that in this whole process.
mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did too. I did too. So, but this is all, this may not seem related to what we're going to talk about, the power of your story, but it is.
It is, yeah.
All of us have a story that we can share. And you know what? Krystle and I have only ever talked once before this podcast.
Hmm.
And yet here we are, we're sharing our stories, and
Yep.
look at the power that's coming from it as we recognize that there's elements of our story that's the same.
Yes.
And as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. When you share your story, you know, you're going to connect with people who resonate with your story.
Hmm.
And when you do that as an entrepreneur, then what happens is you find those people that you want to work with. So I know, Krystle, you have come prepared
Yes.
with some awesome some awesome advice and tips
Yeah.
on the power of your story. So I want to let you loose for a few minutes to
Okay.
share what you've prepared for us.
Sure. So I love, like, I'm so happy that I can talk about it because I feel like um as you said, we all have a story, you know, and sometimes I think it's so important for us to get out there and share our story because as you
Mhm.
said, we don't know how our story is going to help someone else in their journey. And sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, but what would people say? Which I found that's a line, a sentence to totally eliminate from your vocabulary. What would people say? Because people are always going to say everything. I was in a training once where someone said, even if you're saving the world, there is going to there's going to have if you're even if you're saving the world, there's always going to be one or two people that's going to have something negative to say about it, because that's just who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what you're doing, like one of the first things, and this actually just came to me, I didn't actually put it down, but I think before I go into anything else, is that learning to eliminate those words. What would people say?
Mm-hmm.
And especially as you're going into an entrepreneurship journey, that's a big question, especially if you're thinking about launching out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a passion to do something, whether it is coaching someone, whether it is becoming a makeup artist, whether it is becoming a writer, or becoming a service provider, or whatever your niche is that you feel passionate about, that you're thinking that you can monetize. But the thing that's holding you back is, what would people say? The first thing I would say is that learn to start saying, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know? And it's hard. Like initially it'll feel silly saying it. But I feel like the more we say things to ourselves, the more we change the way our brain works.
Yeah.
And actually,
And just something to that is, I tell people, I will always care about people, and I will always show people that I care, but
mm-hmm,
I don't care what people think about me.
mm-hmm, yes, yeah,
And one of the things that I teach in my book writing courses, and this applies to your book, to your business, whatever, there's going to be people, let's say the top 10-15%, who are going to absolutely love what you do, love who you are, love your story, love how you help people.
mm-hmm,
They become your brand ambassadors and tell everybody that they work with you. But at the bottom end, there's going to be 10-15% of people, and even if you could write a perfect book or have the perfect business or perfectly solve all the world's problems, there's still going to be 10-15% of people who hate you, hate your message, hate what you do, and actively promote against you.
mm-hmm.
So I always tell people, don't focus on that bottom 10%, because there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do to change their mind. So
Exactly. Don't, yeah.
but focus on that 10-15% of people that you can make a difference. And,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're starting out, you need to understand that some of that 10-15% may be sitting right in your own family.
Yeah.
Right? Don't
Yes.
expect support from your family. First
Mm-hmm.
of all, that's unrealistic. To be honest, unless they're your perfect target market, they're not going to understand what
No.
it is you're doing, why it is you're doing. And our society has been trained that being an entrepreneur is a big, scary thing, and
Yeah.
it's way too risky, and you
Yes.
just need to get a job,
Yes.
as if there's anything such as job security in today's
Right.
world. But um,
Exactly.
you know, you have to understand that support, if you're looking for your family to support you, yeah, there might be one or two that do, but don't count on it.
Yeah.
Don't ever count on it, because you will be disappointed and then you'll quit before you even start.
It's exactly. And that actually takes me into what one of my first points was that learning how to trust yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and like as I said, one of the things is that, like, and as you said, there's stuff that we can Google and learn about how to build a business, how to set up your accounts and stuff like that, right? But I believe a big part of entrepreneurship and the journey is your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you could read all the book telling you how to do this, whatever your industry is. But I say across the board for all entrepreneurs, mindset is the main key. Training your mind
Yes.
to read about other people who have been successful in your field,
Yes.
and what their journey was. And they would always tell you is the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what you just said about, learning not to listen to even some of the closest people who may be against you, but it's training your mind and the way you do that too is training your mind, right?
Yes.
And trusting yourself. And I realized so it took me a while to trust myself. So in my whole entrepreneurship journey, I started my company 4.5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
based off of something that I love doing naturally. And I would do it naturally, and I would help a lot of people. They would have questions, and they would be like, well, how do you do this? And I'm like, oh, let me just show you, blah, 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 and do it and explain it and back and forth. And a friend of mine was like, Chris, and I was telling her, I don't know my purpose in life, blah, blah. And she's like, Krystle, why don't you make that into your business? You're so passionate about it. People come to you, people will pay you for it. And I was like, wow, but I never thought about it. And I was like, but what if I fail, and all these things, right? And in that 4.5 years journey, again, it was a lot of things about me because my mindset wasn't right. Like I didn't trust myself.
Yes.
So as a result, I bounced around listening to other people who I thought knew better for my life than I did for me. And it caused me to the time from when I started to the time where the success really started to pick up. You know what was the key factor was when I learned to cut everyone's opinions off and started to trust myself, and this is what I want to do. And then once I started saying, hey God, this, you know what, I get all the learning opportunities from this, but I'm going to trust myself, and I'm going to trust the path that you're leading me on. And when that happened, guys, everything started lining up.
Yes.
The people that I needed to be trained from started coming into my life, right? The opportunities to get more knowledge started coming into my life. The right clients started coming to my life. I sometimes I always talk about my clients, and I was like, I love them so much. Like they're such an addition to my business that I feel grateful to have them. And they're people that I learned from, and they are people that when I first started this business, I never dreamed that I would have clientele like them. And I always say, it's not that I'm anybody special. It's just that we're all these opportunities comes to us is when we learn to like start trusting ourselves firstly and foremost, and figuring out what do I want and what is my vision for my life and for my business, right? And then trusting in God that He's going to get you to that point, and then being open to the people and opportunities that come and diving right in. And the next thing that I always say is that train yourself. Sometimes we want to make money right away, right? But we don't have the experience, we don't have the skill set. But entrepreneurship is a learning on the job.
Yes.
You know, take some less, and I know this may go against the grain, but this is what worked for me. Especially when you're now starting off, the people that you trust that are in your corner that can probably use your product or service, you know what? Probably invest in them and be like, guys, this is what I want to do. Would you give me the opportunity? I'm learning to train. I'll do this to my best of my ability. I would not probably charge you as high of a rate, or maybe I'll even do it pro bono just so I can learn and help you out too.
Yep.
You know, and that is how you learn on the job.
I call it paying your dues.
Yes. And too many people, and everybody was like, but I want to go on, I want to make all this money. And I was like, yes, but you have to establish a trust and value. You see, my purpose was that if I'm asking someone to trust me and give me their money for my service, I best believe that I am providing way more than they're expecting. So if I don't feel I'm up to it, and it takes being very honest with ourselves,
yes,
then I have to be willing to do what it takes to make sure I can command the price that I am quoting and that I am giving you. So when you walk away, you know that you've gotten value.
yes,
You know, and you're right, like it goes back to paying our dues. You know, I like saying, okay, I don't know this, but I'm willing to learn. I have clients that especially when I just started off, they'd be like, well, how do you do this? And I was like, you know what, I haven't touched that yet, but I'm going to learn and find out. And you know, and being willing to do those things. And also, most importantly, as you one of the things too now at this stage that I've learned is that learning when to say, I don't know how to do that, that is not my forte, this is not what we agreed upon, and I totally understand if you want someone that can meet those needs.
yes,
Instead of stressing yourself out to take on something that's not your passion.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I want to point out that's really important is that you took a lot of action while you were training. See,
Yeah.
some people, what they do is they just train, and they never act on it, right? Right
Yeah.
from the very beginning, you were like, okay, I need to learn this, but I'm going to make money while I'm learning this.
Yeah.
And so, you offered people services either free or at a lower price, but, you were still making some money, and
Mhm.
you were honest with people and say, listen, I'm still training. I've got these skills, talents, abilities, but I need to put them into practice. And, I'm willing to give you a good price to allow
Mhm.
me to train. And you know what? There's people that will hire you
Yeah.
because of that. And again,
Yeah.
that's back to your story and owning your story and where you're at, right?
Yeah.
It's being honest with where you're at in your business. And you know what? Not being phony, not being fake, owning who you are, owning your
Yeah.
story, and, sharing that with people.
Yes. I believe transparency is the key to being successful with anything, actually, whether it's relationships, whether it is with yourself, whether it is with your business, with your clients, with your journey. I believe transparency is the key to really, because when you're transparent, you're vulnerable and it
Mm.
allows you to connect with someone. And when you do that, people, there are people that are going to say no,
Of
and that's
course.
okay. Those aren't the people that's going to help you build your business.
That's right.
Not everybody's meant to be a client.
And you have to be willing to go through the nose to find the yes.
I used to hate that term, but now I understand it and I agree completely. It is the nose. And when I was, because I resisted it when my mentors would tell me that, I resisted it so much, right?
Well, because no feels like rejection.
Yes.
But it's
And
not. It's not
it's
rejection. They're not rejecting you. They're just saying at this time, either A, I don't need your service, B, I can't afford your service,
right.
or C, I can't see how your service is going to help me. It's nothing to do with
Exactly.
us. It's like
Mm-mm.
the people just don't need or can't afford what we have at this time. So,
And that's exactly true. And but that was my issues that I had to, and one of the things that I was saying, what I wanted to touch on is in that journey, especially of entrepreneurship, learning to trust ourselves, learning, meaning that we have to learn to see where our triggers are stemming from. So when they told me no, I was like, oh, they don't like me. But that was a trigger that I had so I had to spend time figuring out. And now it goes back to exactly what you said. It's not a no to you. It's a no to, and it might not even be a no. It might be a not yet,
mm,
as you said. And those were all lessons that I learned. And I think that, it's always mindful to have in the back of your head as you go through it. Because while I was going through it, because everyone here, guys, as you on your entrepreneur, you're going to go through those no's, as we all did. But in the back of our minds, it's always good to know that, hey, I remember Kim said this, or I remember Krystle said this, the same way I would remember my mentor said this to me. So Krystle, just remember to focus on that. It's not you.
yes,
So deal with your feelings about it, but it's not you.
that's right. That's right. So
Yeah.
let's transition now to your book. So tell us a little bit about your book, where you are in the process, and what has it been like working on it?
So the book is there's this saying by Robert Frost, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader, no
Mm.
discovery in the write. Something along, I might be messing it up, but no discovery in the reader, no discovery in the writer. And writing the book. So right now I have like, maybe I'm probably like, so I have different portions that have different chapters completed.
Okay, so
Um,
first tell us, what is the book about?
so the book, it is about my journey, coming from one country moving into the States. So
Mhm.
journey of immigrants. But the theme basically, so I touch on that a little bit, but the whole theme of it is about a parent's sacrificial love, as well as dealing with grief
Mhm.
and death and depression, and then finding your purpose through all that pain.
Nice.
And it's a memoir. So it starts off from when, um, the book actually starts off from when I first found out my mom was sick. And it deals with a lot of like, flashbacks and it moves through different periods in time from childhood and talking about, so it starts off with learning she was sick and then flashing back to different periods in our relationship. So even the tumultuous mother-daughter relationship, as all, as like that most people have, and then talking about moving away and dealing with that distance from my parents and how what they sacrificed in terms of their own selves for my betterment.
Yes.
And then it focuses on, what I've learned along the way, and then where I was when I learned that my mom was sick and having to go through the lessons with her, and understanding her a lot better and understanding her from a parent point of view, as opposed to when I was a teenager and was always arguing and thinking that my mother hated me because I don't know, and
she's mean. She doesn't like me. She won't let me do what I want.
Yeah, and then how it is to lose a mother at a point when we became friends, where she was the person I was texting all day and the first person I would talk to about stuff, and then having to deal with feeling cheated out of that. But then how using that grief, what I learned about grief and my own journey with grief, and what I've learned that I can share with someone else who may be going through the same thing. Of course, they're not going to go through it exactly how I did, but like what I've learned in that grief is waves.
Yes.
So you're just going to have to ride it out, or you can't, 6 years down the line, it's still, there are days that it's still rough, and learning how that has helped me to become, one, find the writer within me, and the entrepreneur within me.
Cool. So what's been the hardest part of this so far?
Oh, the hardest part was actually being very vulnerable with my emotions when it came to writing. There are still parts that I cannot access.
Yes.
To put on paper because it's way too painful, but it's so necessary to the story.
Yes.
But I can't access it yet. And one of my writing coach said that. He was like, you can't determine when it's too soon or when you'll know when you can put if
you'll know when you're ready.
Yes, that's what he said. He's like, you'll know when you're ready to put it down on paper. But the hardest part is sometimes pushing through certain stuff to write it and put it on paper, because it feels like I'm rehashing. And anyone that's doing, especially if it's I wouldn't say, well, it is sad, but like if it's like such a serious topic and is doing a memoir and a nonfiction memoir, and you have to access those feelings.
Yes.
I feel like that's always the hardest part, because you do have to come face to face with yourself and your insides on paper.
Yes. Awesome. So how can people find you and get a hold of you, Krystle, connect with you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So people can search for me on Krystle Dookoo on LinkedIn.
Okay. So you want to spell that for us?
So it's KrystleJ as in jump, ENNA, and Dookoo, D as in David, OOKOO.
Thank you, because some names are harder to spell, and it's always good to have it. Well, Krystle, thank you so much for being on the show today and for being so vulnerable and sharing with us your story. And I know many people are going to be encouraged by what you've said today. So this has been Krystle Dookoo and Kim Thompson-Pinder on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
Bye.